Well, in recent news, it makes me shake my head. The UN has declared that they denounced Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, which to me is no surprise, as the UN has proven itself to be, well, for a lack of a better term, more concerned with keeping up appearances rather than actually helping the nations that are under its banner. However, I see this as a good thing, as Trump has threatened to cut funding to countries that voted against it. Again, it being the decision to make Jerusalem the capital of Israel. And I'm totally fine with that. In fact, I fucking encourage it. The less money that's sent outside of our borders in the US, the better. But call me an isolationist. Now, a little side note here. Judaism was founded over 3,500 years ago, being one of the oldest Abrahamic religions. So it's been around for quite some time. Islam, on the other hand, came about in the 7th century. So, yeah, I take a strong stance with Trump on this. One of the things he did, I entirely agree with. But let's have a look at this from CNN, stating that this move upends decades of U.S. foreign policy and inflames tensions in the area, unsettling prospects for peace. But, given the history of Israel and Palestine, a rather bloody one, I don't think peace was in the foreseeable future. With that said, it has been relatively quiet in the area, but it's a powder keg waiting to happen. Given the UN's actions, including some of our allies, and that include the UK, France, Germany, and Japan, voting for the resolution, while other allies such as Australia, Canada, they abstained. This can be an example to us in the US, who is with our policy and who is against it. But I do see a glaring hypocrisy here. If escalating violence and inflamed political strife are the issue and the things you don't want, why detach the two major groups involved in pursuing peace in the region? With that being said, that being the UK and the US. But with that being said, what does this mean for peacekeeping efforts in the future? Well, one could look to this. Now, the reality is I knew this would happen, as did a lot of other people. But the reality is I remain strong on my conviction with Jerusalem being the capital of Israel because of fucking history. But let's look here. You can see that a man by the name Abu Ati, I can't pronounce it, implied that simply calling Jerusalem the capital of Israel will cause trouble, or this from a man by the name of Hamdi Diab, I can't fucking pronounce his name either, but he is calling for a new intifada. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. So what does that word mean? Well, here it is. It's essentially an uprising, but, under the pretty guise of oppression. So this leads me down another rabbit hole where I ask if this is the Palestinian reaction to Jerusalem being named the capital. Not even officially, mind you. The only official part of it is that the U.S. Embassy is being moved. But what would happen if we say we split the city down the middle? What's to stop the Palestinian side from causing trouble in an attempt to get the other half, or vice versa? Using USSR era Berlin as an example, split cities do not make for a good situation. But I am also aware that Palestinians will probably continue to make issues in this for a while, or here's where I raise my concerns, the decision is reversed. Because if it is in light of these actions, it will set a precedent for the area that if you want to get your way, all you have to do is cause problems and you'll get your ideological ends. Or in other words, the ends justify the means. As seen in history, appeasement doesn't work. All it does is further incite violence, the very thing we are supposedly advocating against. And by this, I mean, I think, for example, you look at Hitler, every time the leaders in Europe gave him another country that he had taken over and allowed him to have it without any contest whatsoever, all it did was embolden him, raise morale for his troops, and allow him to bolster his numbers, creating what essentially became the massive war that happened, when in reality it could have been stopped much earlier in history. But what can I say? If we do not learn from our history, we are doomed to repeat it, as much seems to be the case with what we are dealing with now. instead of having a form of steadfast boundaries. We are giving certain groups certain leniencies just because they cause issues. But what do I know? I wouldn't say that, learning from history is a good thing at all. But despite all of the fox rage from people, the conviction must remain strong. The decision should remain as it is, and I'll explain why. Given the history of all three Abrahamic religions, Judaism is the oldest, Islam is the youngest, with Christianity, and by extension Catholicism, being the middle child. So outside of faith, if you really want to boil it down, the reality is the numbers don't lie. So, in my eyes, this is just a return of the land back to its original owners. That being the original owners being people of the Judaic faith, because, I don't know, Judaic faith and by extension the Abrahamic religions viewed Jerusalem as a holy site. Therefore, they had first claims to it, dibs, so to speak. But regardless, in regards to the decision as a reflection upon Trump, while some people may view this with disdain, he committed to one of his campaign promises, and I can respect that. And I also agree with him, seeing as the issues I've had with his policies lately. This is a gladly accepted change of pace, and also a gladly accepted change of pace when it comes to politicians actually maintaining somewhat of forward working when it comes to the promises they made while they were on the campaign trail versus what they do when they actually get into office. After all, it's a commonly perpetuated stereotype that politicians will try to sell you anything with their tongue, but once they get into office, they tend not to be able to own up to said check. But anyway, that'll do it for this video. I do realize it's relatively short, but well, quite frankly, I could do a very long, extended discussion about this. I could probably do hours of discussion about this because, frankly, the history in Israel isn't just, or not even Israel, but between Israel and Palestine isn't just boiled down to what has happened over the past 50 years. This has been happening for ages and upon ages, and it's not even necessarily just between Israel and Palestine. It just happens to be between groups of people over this particular plot of land. After all, Jerusalem and Palestine are just essentially a peace treaty, is all that they are. There's two groups decided upon these two pieces of land, and through some form of whimsical fate have managed to not completely tear themselves apart yet. But, keyword being yet, and as I said before, it's a powder keg waiting to happen. But anyway, with that will do it for this video, and I will see you, glorious cunts, actually not next week. That is actually a discussion I'd like to have. With the festivities coming up with the holidays, you will probably not see me until Thursday. So I will not have a video Tuesday unless something happens. I don't know. It snows 20 feet, I get snowed in and have no other choice but to make a video. Barring that, though, there will not be a video on Tuesday. So, with that said, I do have a guest planned for Wednesday, and I will see you guys in that live stream. Once again, barring any major issues. So, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and or night. I'll see you glorious cunts next week.